Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Richard Strauss sopranos. Yes, Strauss had a special feel for the soprano voice. Everybody agrees on that. He even married one. He had a special feel in several different directions. Okay, enough of that. Who are the 5 greatest Richard Strauss sopranos? Well, I think that I've got a list here that's pretty comprehensive. And I'm very interested to have your picks as well, because, everybody sang Strauss. Everyone who was a soprano sang Strauss. Obviously, these operas are in the repertory, and zillions of singers did them, and zillions of singers did them very well. But there is a quality, a special quality, to a good Strauss soprano, a great Strauss soprano. There's a silvery quality to the voice. Something that has this sort of sheen that can be surrounded by a halo of violins and somehow just float over them. And then there's an extraordinary sense of pitch accuracy, because Strauss's music is not easy to sing, and beautifully even creamy top register, that does all of that stuff. An ease of moving up and down through the voice that you just got to have. A wonderful sense of fluidity and rhythm, and I think just as important, a really serious and careful attention to text and to word pointing, because Strauss was very careful in his selection of words, of librettists, of poets, and singers need to be conscious of that and pay very careful attention to the actual text setting, even if we don't understand a word when they're screaming and shrieking. And, seriously, it matters. It really matters. So here are 5 who I think have all of those qualities to one degree or another. First, Soile Isokoski. She is the latest, I think, of this batch, Finnish soprano who has made some just glorious Strauss recordings, particularly of the 4 last songs, the 3 hymns, some scenes from the operas. They're on Ondine, 2 discs of Strauss that any sane person will just adore. They're absolutely gloriously, beautifully wonderful stuff. Then we have Elisabeth Schwarzkopf. Now, Schwarzkopf is one of those singers who you sort of either love or hate, because her singing could be absolutely unbelievably mannered, mannered or artsy, depending, the ultimate and artistic singing stuff, depending on how you look at it. But I think her operatic singing is much more tolerable than her lieder singing on the whole. I may find there may be people who disagree with me on that, but as a Strauss soprano, she was absolutely marvelous at those sort of decadent, languishing, aristocratic characters like the Marschallin or the Countess in Capriccio. She had absolutely the right attitude. And yes, these people are somewhat decadent and affected, and at the end, and all of these characters, they begin as somewhat distant, cool characters, but they reveal the human heart underneath. And Schwarzkopf understood that, and she was able to do that really, really well in portraying those characters. So I think she definitely belongs on the list. Birgit Nilsson. Now, Birgit Nilsson, of course, is the histrionic Strauss. Salome, Electra, the dyer's wife in Die Frau in Schatten. She was not Arabella by any stretch of the imagination. She wasn't one of those, languishing wallflower types. She wasn't Ariadne. She was the Wagnerian Straussian soprano par excellence, and she was just amazing. So she has to definitely be on the list for those early Strauss expressionist nightmare roles, which she could belt out like there's no tomorrow. I saw her do Electra at the Met, and oh my God. If you go there now and you look up at the gold leaf ceiling, the Met, which is all gold leaf, you see that there are certain patches where the gold leaf has flaked away. that happened during her Electra. She just destroyed the interior. Unbelievable. Next, Lisa Della Casa, Arabella, Four Last Songs, things like that. Della Casa was just she had the Strauss voice. She really did. It had that quick vibrato, that combination of sort of, pitch accuracy but fragility at the same time. I mean, there was this wonderful sort of quivering humanity about the way she sang that was absolutely glorious. And so she makes my list. And last but not least, Gundula Janowitz, another singer who had just beauty of voice. I mean, buckets of gorgeous tone to spare. Really, really fabulous. She was the Capriccio Countess in the Böhm recording of that opera, and some people think that she was better than Schwarzkopf. I don't want to have to choose. I really don't in that particular department, but she was pretty amazing. She also made one of the most glorious recordings of the Four Last Songs with Karajan. She had a wonderful, wonderful voice and sufficient temperament to really inhabit her roles. So she makes my list of the 5 most glorious Strauss sopranos. But, there were a bunch of them, like I said, and I'm very interested to see who you come up with, whether they're on my list or on your list. So have a good time with this one. Get into your collection of grotty historical recordings and air checks that nobody cares about, all of that crap that you opera people collect, and let's have your list. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.